I got one for you now. So I've been talking with a couple friends of mine who have heard my fish story. Now, a lot of people have a fish story. Usually they're bullshit. But this ain't bullshit. This is the absolute truth. And if I lie in the middle of this story, I'll tell you about it. But I'm not planning to. So, me and two of my friends back in the 80s, 1980s, we're going to go fishing on my boat. It was a 17-foot Glastron. It was a bow rider, if you know what that is. It's got a spot in the front of the boat for people to fish, and then there's a windshield that's got an opening that you can walk through and come back to the back of the boat and where the steering wheel and all that stuff's at. So we lived off the Chesapeake Bay, Magothy River. So we take off one night, and we're going to go night fishing. So, this was a long time ago, because supposedly you can't do it anymore. I don't know why. But we were going to go night fishing, and then the next morning go fishing as well. So my responsibility was the boat and the gas. Mike's responsibility, who's a friend of mine from the community, was the bait. So he went to a store on the Eastern Shore and bought soft crab faces and lungs and stuff, the stuff that's left over after you clean a soft crab, if you know what I mean. He bought 5 gallons of that for chum. And then he bought a whole bunch of actual soft crabs, not peelers like they do nowadays. Back then we had soft crabs. So he bought a whole bunch of soft crabs. So we take off at about 7 o'clock in the evening, and we start going out there, and didn't realize it's a full moon that night. But we get out there and we start trying to fish, and we're not catching anything, and the wind is getting worse and the waves are getting worse, and we're thinking, man, I don't know if we want to stay out here all night. And then the waves got to where they were about 4.5 feet high, which is pretty big for the bay. So we're bouncing all over the place. We're trying to set anchor. We can't really set an anchor very well. We're trying to fish, can't fish. We're out there at the Bay Bridge. We're on the Eastern Shore side of the Bay Bridge. Just to the south of it, there's a harbor, and I knew that. But on the Bay Bridge side of the harbor, the shoreline's all rocks and everything, and it's night now when we're decide, okay, we better go into the harbor because it's really getting bad. So we go in, and we missed it because the port light was out, and we came across to the rocks, and I start hearing the boat, I heard the waves first hitting the rocks, and then the boat starting to go in. So I jumped in the water and pushed the boat off of the rocks, and we went back out into the bay where it was deeper. Still, that we are really having a hard time. We can't figure out how to get there. We finally got the anchor to catch, but the waves are banging the boat around. The wind is turning, and the wind is headed south across the water. It was coming from the north. And so I look up, and just down past the Bay Bridge is this huge full moon, and the wind looked like it was funneling right into that full moon. And Vinny, whose job was to bring the weed and the booze, he's got his leather jacket on. He just sits in the back of the boat, and he said, forget this, I'm just going to sleep. So he goes to sleep. Mike, my friend from the neighborhood, who turned out to be a preacher for a while, at any rate, he takes this tarp kind of thing that he had for a poncho, and puts it over top of a Coleman lantern that he had for warmth. Now, I'm sitting in the driver's seat of the boat, and the window that separates the front of the boat from the back of the boat the hinges were broke on it. So about every third or fourth wave that bounced us, the window would fall out. Water would come spraying over the front of the boat and get me wet again. I'm already wet because I've been in the water once. So we weren't happy. Well, I especially was pissed. So I keep, all night, I'm putting this stupid window back in. I turned to that moon, and for some reason I knew it was the moon's fault. And I turned to that moon and I said, you're doing this. I said, all right, we'll live through your night, but tomorrow we catch fish. So that night, we bounced all night, and it was a bad night for all of us. Next morning, as soon as we could see good enough to find that port, we went into the port. And the restaurant there was closed, and, you know, the port wasn't really open. Vinny gets out of the boat, and we tie the boat up, and he just starts walking. And I, like, run up to him, and I'm like, Vinny, where are you going? He says, coffee. I said, Vinny, you walk up this gravel road for like a mile, then you get to where you're at 50, and then you walk up there for like another 3 miles, you might find coffee. I think our best bet is to stay here, and when this restaurant opens, then we get coffee, breakfast, whatever we're going to do. Vinny wasn't liking it. But he came back, and we sat there, and then a young kid came and an old man, and they were opening the place up, and they took one look at us. And I had this huge straw hat on that my grandfather had given me. And Vinny looked like hell, Mike looked like hell. I mean, we'd been out all night. So we decide, hey, buddy, how soon can we get some coffee? And the young kid said, I'll make some right now. So he goes in, he makes a pot of coffee and brings it out to us. Really nice of him. We get the coffee, we're all feeling a little bit better. So we look out on the bay, and it's calm as can be. So it's like, hey, we've been waiting for like a month to do this fishing trip. Let's go out and catch some fish. So we go out and we anchor next to, I think it was either 21 or 24 on the Bay Bridge. And we start chumming. Next thing you know, heads and tails of bluefish are everywhere. They're everywhere. And these are like 2 to 4 pounds each. So we start fishing. We're bringing them in one after another. I mean, we are just somebody was bringing in a fish all the time. It didn't take but a half a minute, and you're hitting. We sat there for hours hitting these bluefish. And we had a trash can with us, one of them Rubbermaid trash cans, big sucker. And we filled it. We had ice in it and beer and shit like that. Well, we took the ice and beer out of it, and we just kept, well, we didn't take the ice out. We just kept throwing fish in it. Throwing them in, throwing them in, throwing them in, throwing them in. Got to the point to where I was tired. I didn't want to fish no more. Mike had already stopped. And Vinny, he had never been fishing. He had never even heard of a fishing trip like this, you know, to where you're just catching so many fish. But Vinny's still fishing. So I said, all right, I'm going to count these fish. So I start counting them, and the goddamn bluefish, I don't know if you know, but they bite like crazy, snapper blues. And I got caught a couple times trying to pull them out of this tub. So I'm pulling them out of the tub and everything. 79 bluefish. 79 of them. Vinny looks at me and he goes, well, might as well make it an even 80. And throws. Now, at this point, we are out of bait. And we are literally squeezing the stomachs of these bluefish. That's how I got bit. And squeezing soft crab pieces out of the bluefish's mouth and putting it on the hook and throwing it back out there. So Vinny says, might as well make it an even 80, and he throws it over, and couple seconds later, bang, he's got another one. And he brings it up. And I said, I'll take it off the hook for you, Vin. And he swings it over to me, and the damn fish had swallowed the hook. I'm like, ah, shit, he swallowed the hook. So I'm like pulling on it and looking down his mouth and pulling on it. And it looked like that the hook was caught on another eyelet of some kind that was going deeper into this bluefish's stomach. I could see the whole hook, and I could see this eyelet thing. And I'm like, what the hell is that? And I'm yanking on it. I'm looking down this bluefish's mouth, and he snapped his jaw, and that hook came free, came up, went in my lip, and the barb came out the outside of my lip. So I got a steel leader hanging off of a hook in my mouth and 80 blues in my boat. And I'm like, shit. So I turned to Vinny and I go, Vinny, get this hook out of my mouth. And Vinny's like, oh my gosh. Mike couldn't even look at me. And they're like, no, we got to go to the hospital. We should go to the hospital. We should go to the hospital. I said, there's no goddamn way I am going home with 80 blues in my boat and a hook in my mouth. It's not happening. I will pull it out my damn self, but it's not happening. So we start driving around boat to boat looking for somebody that can help us, because I knew that if I could just cut the barb off of this hook, I could pull it out the back the way, and I'll have a hole in my lip, whatever. So we're going around. I got a rag on my mouth like this. I'm bleeding a little bit, and we're asking people, do you got some wire cutters or something? No, why? Doing all this, right? So we're going from boat to boat. We finally get to this little, like a 12-foot game fisher, and it's an old man. A girl could have been like 13, 14 years old, and a boy that was about 13, 14 years old. And they're fishing and all out there. And I'm thinking to myself, Jesus Christ, I'm lucky they don't swamp the damn boat, man. If they had been out here last night, they'd have sunk. So we turned to them and said, do you have any wire cutters? And I got the thing on my, like this. I'm trying not to scare anybody anymore. And he's like, what do you need wire cutters for? And I said, sir, I got a hook in my mouth. He said, what? And I said, I got a hook in my mouth and I need to cut the barb off. That man stood up in that boat, and the boat starts shaking back and forth, and he's looking all over the place. And he finds this little toolbox and he pulls it out, and he's got these wire cutters, and he trying to hand them to me. I said, sir, calm down, please. Don't swamp your boat over this, and I'm kind of laughing. So he hands me the clippers, and I hand them to Vinny, and I'm like, Vinny, cut this friggin' barb off and let's get this shit over with. And Vinny's like, man, I don't know. I really don't think so. And Mike is like, no, we got to go to the hospital. We got to go to the hospital. I said, Vinny, swear to God, put that thing on here and I'll cut it. So he did. He put it on there, and I cut it, and I pulled the thing back through there, and I'm telling you, that whole way and sealed right up. Stopped bleeding and all. Well, nothing. It was looked like a red freckle. Handed the guy back his cutters, and we moseyed on home. And that is our fishing trip. 100%. Got home, started filleting blues, had a big fish fry. Then he took home a bunch of these Ziploc bags of blues. I'm not a real bluefish eater, but, we put them on a grill, and so they got crispy and everything. And we were drinking beer and eating bluefish and laughing about the damn trip. So that is Dirt Guys fishing trip. 100% real, guaranteed, not even an exaggeration. Left a little bit out, there's a little marijuana back then, and it wasn't legal, that type of shit. But, we had a great time, but we had to really go through it the night before we could catch the 80 blues the next day. Y'all have a great day.